Alright, so today we're going to be going over the current possible teammate options when it comes to Silver Wolf 999. And just for reference, I am going to be using regular Silver Wolf icon for the new Silver Wolf, and I'm going to be using the normal Trailblazer for the Elation Trailblazers. And what I'm going to discuss is, like I said, the current possible options when it comes to teammate options so that you can prepare yourself for when Silver Wolf 999 or SW9 as I like to call her comes out. And I mean, we're really limited, right? Let's just get the elephant in the room out. We're really limited on team options because of the fact that it is a brand new, still relatively a brand new path when it comes to Elation, and in the current supporting units we currently have don't necessarily boost the overall actual Elation damage that the characters do, whereas comparison to when Remembrance came out, we did have a character such as Sunday who was actually pretty viable when it comes to help boosting the overall Remembrance team damage, like when Aglaia first came out. So starting off, the best option when it comes to Silver Wolf is going to be Sparksy, and the reasoning for that is because of the amount of punchline that she is actually able to produce. Going over here to Sparksy's kit, we can see, I believe it is her skill, one of her skills, but whenever you consume skill points, right, it is going to be allowing you to generate punchline. It actually might be one of her traces right here, is that based on the number of Elation characters in the team when you use the ultimate, okay, so you're going to be gaining additional punchline, but also that whenever the skill points are going to be consumed, is that she is also going to be increasing the amount of punchline that your characters are going to be able to further enhance and boost. Right here we can see here that the 2 punchline points and 2 skill point points, and then 1 punchline point for the Unreal Banger. And this is important because of Silver Wolf 999's or SW9's main damage is going to be the amount of punchline you currently have, as she is able to increase the overall damage that your team is going to be able to do when she's in her enhanced ultimate state. When you have the option to do the 3 different attacks, that is where SW9's is going to be at her absolute pinnacle. And because I'm saying that, it's going to be widely possibly looked at negatively, but I do think Sparkle is actually like really ideal on this team because of the fact herself, Sparkle, is able to help further enhance and boost Sparksy being able to generate more skill points. So that means more punchline you're going to be able to have eventually when you are able to use SW9's increased ultimate and do the overall maximum amount of Elation damage. And saying that, I do know that we are in version 1 of testing, right? And the overall damage is going to have to be adjusted because I do think that SW9's is going to be able to do even more damage. They're going to have to just adjust the overall multipliers and calculations and all of that fun jazz. So that's where I think that the team is currently going to be looking ideally. Like for me, this is going to be the core setup for my SW9's. Next up is going to be somewhat of a tougher choice because I am seeing a lot of discussion when it comes to this next character, that going to be Yao Guang. And I do think Yao Guang is kind of unfortunately like in a limbo state, whereas she is able to enact 20 punchline from her ultimate inherently. She's able to boost Elation damage from her zone that she's able to put up. Let me just go ahead and pull her up. But I do think that because you want skill point consumption, you want a lot of punch line. And granted, she's able to provide 3 punch line from her skill and 5 punch line for the ultimate, and then you are able to enact 1 extra instance of an aha instant with 20 punch line. I do think is really good with the all type res pen, but I do think honestly it's kind of a tough situation because of the fact that if you do decide to run those 3 up top along with SW9s, you're running a team without a sustained character. And I do think, just like for endgame content, while yes, your overall damage output is possibly going to be at the absolute pinnacle of where SW9s is going to be capable of doing, you do limit yourself on team survivability without a sustained character. So I do think that actually hinders her a little bit. Next up is going to be Huawa, and Huawa I think is going to be very good. She consumes a skill point, which is good. Also kind of on the downside because, you know, Sparksy's not going to be able to do that, but she's able to further enhance the ultimate for everybody outside of SW9s, obviously. And then what she's able to do is further boost attack for everybody from her ultimate, which SW9s actually really wants. And I do think that kind of pushes her up to that S tier because of the fact that you don't have to try to reach that absolute pinnacle of attack numbers based off of relics when you have an ultimate that supplies supporting capabilities for your main DPS character. Next up is going to be the Elation MC, and I haven't really gone over his kit fully, but I do know essentially what he does, and he's a certified banger guy, so he's not going to be ideal for SW9s. He could be an option for an account that doesn't have like the premium Elation team currently, and saying that I mean Sparksy, Sparkle, Yao Guang, SW9s. He could be viable on that kind of team, but in terms of his viability, he's better suited on an Evanescent team. Next up is going to be Sunday, and like I previously mentioned before, the damage calculation for overall Elation damage doesn't necessarily take a massive portion of what Sunday is going to be providing into that, you know, account. Also because of the fact that he is going to be competing with someone like Sparkle. So let's say you don't have Sparkle, right? You have all these other characters, which is really good. I mean, ideally you would want to be running these 3 together. However, because you don't have Sparkle, then Sunday honestly would be A tier, being able to advance action forward as well as giving a crit damage boost, something that Sparkle does do to your character. The only downside for Sunday in comparison to Sparkle is the fact that he does not further increase the maximum amount of skill points that you would currently be able to use. So that is somewhat of a hindrance when it comes to the comparison between Sparkle and Sunday. Next up is going to be Brana, and Brana falls in a very similar vein to Sunday in that the advanced action forward is very, very good for a main DPS team, as this SW9's team is going to be with a decent sub DPS character. So you can really like mix and match what you really want to be focusing on and prioritizing to further enhance just the overall damage the team is going to be doing. But again, outside of that, her advanced action forward and the ultimate, I will have to say, she boosts crit damage, so that's very good. She's not doing a whole lot, and she's consuming a skill point, something that Sparksy really wants to do to help further boost SW9s. But you know, again, it comes down to the same circumstances if you don't have Sparkle, which would be kind of surprising since she's given out for free. But again, on that preface that if you don't have Sparkle, then I do think Brana and Sunday are a good, decent option. And then Ruan Mei I have on here, as I know she's essentially a break supporting character, but she's also able to provide a decent amount of boosting for everybody else, right, on the team. But I do think she falls in that the Elation meta isn't necessarily where her bread and butter is going to be, and she's a little slow in comparison to what the other, you know, best Harmony characters are fully capable of doing and providing for SW9s with the advanced action forward and with the boosting, massive boosting of the crit damage, and, you know, essentially just the, you know, advanced action forward that if you need to be in a pinch, you have everything set up perfectly, boom, SW9s comes right to the forefront and able to do all that damage. Outside of that though, other team options, looking at everything, I don't think at this current moment anybody really screams out that like, yeah, no, they're really good. I definitely think that at this current point, this is what we are rocking with. And for me, I will be testing most of these characters. I do plan on getting her probably E2, honestly, looking at her eidolons and all that stuff, which you know, make sure you watch the previous video, but the vertical investment strategy with Silver Wolf, I do think E2 is probably going to be her best bet. But in terms of team options, this is where I think that it is going to be slotted in and what players should be ideally targeting.